Robyn Brown just got branded the villain of season 20, and the evidence is absolutely damning. After years of tears, victim speeches, and why doesn't anyone include me performances, viewers have finally connected the dots on what's really been happening behind closed doors. This isn't speculation from bored internet trolls. This is detailed pattern analysis from thousands of women who've been freeze-framing footage, cross-referencing timelines, and documenting a manipulation playbook so consistent it could be taught in a masterclass. The verdict is in, and it's brutal. Robyn isn't the victim she's been playing on camera. She's the puppet master pulling strings while everyone else takes the fall. Here's what's exploding across Reddit right now. A top comment with thousands of upvotes lays it out plainly. Robyn plays the victim to distract from her own schemes. The formula is shockingly predictable once you see it. She dramatically storms out of family conversations, tears streaming, voice breaking, looking absolutely devastated. The cameras follow her distress. Everyone feels terrible. But then comes the part that doesn't make the highlight reels. She quietly circles back to Cody, pulls him aside, and coaches him on exactly how to redirect his anger toward whichever wife she's targeting that week. The dramatic exit is theater. The whispered strategy session is the actual performance. Let's get specific, because this isn't vague accusation. This is documentation. One Redditor describes a scene where Robyn leaves a heated family meeting about budget allocations, visibly sobbing about feeling attacked and excluded. The cameras capture her breakdown in the car. She's the picture of wounded sensitivity. Cut to the next episode, and suddenly Cody's refusing to even discuss the budget item Robyn opposed with Mary. He's cold, dismissive, completely shut down. No explanation offered. But viewers notice something the editors hoped would slip by undetected. Between those two scenes, there's a time gap of several hours based on outfit changes and lighting shifts. And in that mystery window, Robyn and Cody had a private conversation that never made air. The result? Mary got completely iced out, and Robyn's financial concerns became Cody's ironclad position delivered as his own independent decision. This pattern repeats constantly once you know what to look for. Another user points to the camping trip episode where Robyn cried about the family not spending enough quality time together. Her performance was so convincing that Christine actually apologized for being too wrapped up with her own children. It seemed like a genuine moment of vulnerability and reconciliation. Fast forward 3 episodes, and the itinerary for a major family gathering mysteriously changed at the last minute. The new arrangement? Cody and Robyn would arrive a day early to reconnect privately, effectively cutting all the other wives out of setup time and early bonding. Who suggested this revision? The cameras never captured that decision-making conversation, but the outcome is crystal clear. Robyn secured exclusive access while maintaining her image as the wife who just wants everyone closer. The comment threads are absolutely surgical in breaking down her tactics. One viewer notes that Robyn's tears follow a predictable 3-act structure every single time. Act 1, emotional breakdown about being excluded, attacked, or misunderstood. Act 2, private conversation with Cody that happens off-camera or in whispered exchanges viewers can't fully hear. Act 3, implementation of a decision that specifically benefits Robyn while being framed as what's healthiest for the entire family. It's mechanical in its consistency, and it's been operating in plain sight for years while Robyn cultivated the persona of the sweet, overwhelmed wife who simply wants harmony. But the manipulation goes deeper than winning arguments or changing schedules. According to multiple posts now dominating the Sister Wives subreddit, Robyn's been conducting what users are calling secret whisper campaigns, specifically designed to systematically destroy Cody's relationships with the original 3 wives. This isn't reactive behavior. This is calculated, long-game strategy that makes those on-camera tears look like amateur hour warm-ups for the real work happening in private moments. And the community of women who've been watching this family for over a decade, they're absolutely done pretending they don't see exactly what's been happening. The secret whisper campaigns are where this whole operation gets truly calculated. Multiple Reddit users have started documenting what they're calling Robyn's poison drip strategy, and once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. This isn't about winning one argument or changing one plan. This is systematic isolation, dressed up as concern, delivered in private moments designed to turn Cody against the other wives, one whispered doubt at a time. And the footage backs it up in ways that are genuinely chilling once you know what you're watching. Here's how it works according to viewers who've been taking notes. After nearly every group family meeting where tensions run high, Robyn finds a reason to pull Cody aside for what looks like an innocent private conversation. Sometimes it's framed as needing comfort after a difficult discussion. Sometimes it's positioned as wanting to process her feelings away from the group. The camera angles change, the audio gets harder to catch, but the outcomes of these mystery sidebar conversations tell the whole story. Within 1 or 2 episodes, Cody's attitude toward whichever wife Robyn was concerned about shifts dramatically, and his talking points sound suspiciously like concerns Robyn raised weeks earlier, dressed up as his own observations. One Redditor provides a specific timeline that's startling in its precision. After a family meeting about Mary's role in the family businesses, Robyn pulled Cody aside in what appeared to be a comforting moment. She was visibly upset, and Cody wrapped his arm around her as they walked toward their house. The conversation itself wasn't fully captured, but viewers with good hearing caught fragments. "I just worry about loyalty, and you can't ignore the patterns" were phrases that made it through. 2 episodes later, Cody's suddenly questioning Mary's commitment to the family in a talking head interview, using almost identical language about loyalty and concerning patterns. He delivered it as his own independent assessment. But the seed was planted in that sidebar conversation, and anyone paying attention saw exactly where his newfound concerns originated. The Christine situation follows an eerily similar blueprint. During discussions about Christine wanting to move back to Utah, Robyn had multiple private moments with Cody that cameras only partially captured. In one, she's seen touching his arm gently while saying something that makes him nod seriously. In another, she's walking beside him in their backyard, talking intently while he listens with his arms crossed. The actual words? Mostly inaudible on the broadcast. But immediately following these private sessions, Cody's suddenly accusing Christine of being selfish, of abandoning the family, of never really buying into their plural lifestyle. The shift is dramatic, and the timing is impossible to ignore. Robyn plants the seeds in private, and Cody harvests the talking points in public, while Robyn maintains her position as the neutral wife who just wants peace. Several users point out that Robyn's approach is textbook triangulation. She rarely attacks the other wives directly in group settings. That would make her the obvious villain. Instead, she positions herself as the concerned observer, sharing worries with Cody in intimate moments. She frames her doubts as coming from a place of love and protection. "I'm just worried about you" becomes the shield that lets her say absolutely anything about the other wives while looking like the caring partner. And Cody, increasingly isolated in his own bubble with Robyn as his primary emotional support, accepts her version of events as truth and then weaponizes it against the wives she's targeting. The most disturbing element, according to these detailed posts, is how Robyn allegedly uses information from group conversations as ammunition in her private sessions. A wife shares a struggle in a family meeting. Robyn listens, nods sympathetically, appears supportive in the moment. Then, in her private time with Cody, that same struggle gets reframed as evidence of deeper problems. Christine's exhaustion from managing kids alone becomes proof she never wanted plural marriage. Janelle's independent nature becomes evidence she's not really committed to the family unit. Mary's attempts to reconnect after the catfishing scandal become manipulation attempts. Robyn takes their own words, twists the context just enough, and feeds the altered version to Cody when no one else is around to offer a different perspective. One comment describes it perfectly. She's not just whispering in his ear, she's rewriting everyone else's story in real time, and Cody's believing her version because she's the only voice he's hearing anymore. The isolation isn't accidental. The private conversations aren't random. And the consistent outcomes where Robyn's concerns become Cody's positions while she maintains her image as the peacemaker reveal a level of strategic manipulation that has the sister wives community absolutely stunned at how long it operated in plain sight. The crying is strategic, and viewers have the receipts to prove it. What looks like genuine emotional vulnerability on camera is actually the opening move in a pattern so consistent you could set your watch by it. Robyn cries, the family scrambles to comfort her, and then in the aftermath of all that emotional chaos, decisions get made that exclusively benefit her, while everyone else is still recovering from the drama. It's manipulation disguised as sensitivity, and the Sister Wives audience has finally started tracking the formula with the precision of federal investigators. Here's the cycle that keeps repeating. One Redditor breaks it down in stages that show up across multiple seasons. Stage 1. Robyn becomes visibly emotional during a family discussion, usually about logistics, finances, or time distribution. Her tears aren't quiet or private, they're prominent, camera-catching, conversation-stopping moments that immediately shift all attention to her distress. Stage 2. The discussion that was happening before her breakdown gets abandoned. Whatever issue was on the table, whether it was Christine's needs or Janelle's concerns, disappears because now everyone's focused on why Robyn's so upset and how to make her feel better. Stage 3. And this is where it gets calculated. In the wake of her emotional episode, new decisions get implemented that directly address Robyn's underlying concerns, while the original topic never gets resolved. Let's look at specific examples, because the pattern is shockingly blatant once it's pointed out. During one family meeting about vacation planning, Christine suggested a destination she'd been researching that the kids were excited about. Robyn's face fell. She started tearing up, talking about how she felt like her input never mattered, how she always got outvoted, how exhausting it was to constantly feel like the outsider. Christine immediately backed down and apologized. The conversation shifted entirely to reassuring Robyn that her voice was valued, and then, as viewers noted, the family never actually returned to finalizing the vacation plans that episode. But 2 episodes later, they're packing for a trip to a destination Robyn had casually mentioned wanting to visit months earlier. The switch happened off-camera, but the outcome speaks for itself. Robyn's tears derailed Christine's momentum, and the final decision landed exactly where Robyn wanted it. Another user points to the budget meeting episode that became legendary for how masterfully Robyn deployed tears to avoid accountability. The family was reviewing expenses, and questions came up about charges on the shared credit card that seemed to be predominantly from Robyn's household. Before anyone could dig into specifics, Robyn's voice started shaking. She talked about how attacked she felt, how she was always the one getting blamed, how maybe she should just handle her own finances separately if everyone thought she was so irresponsible. The tears started flowing. Cody immediately jumped to her defense. The other wives rushed to clarify they weren't attacking her, and the actual budget review, it ended right there. The specific questions about the charges never got answered, but Robyn successfully repositioned herself as the victim of unfair scrutiny rather than the subject of legitimate financial questions. The most telling pattern according to these detailed viewer analyses is what happens in the episodes immediately following Robyn's emotional breakdowns. The cameras show her recovering, usually in private scenes with Cody where he's comforting her and reassuring her. These moments look tender and supportive, but then comes the kicker. Within the next episode or two, some logistical element of family life shifts in Robyn's favor, and it's presented as Cody's decision or a natural evolution rather than a direct result of her tears. The family gathering gets rescheduled to accommodate Robyn's preference. The budget allocation changes to give her household more flexibility. The holiday plans adjust to include something Robyn wanted. It's never explicitly connected to her crying episode, but the timeline doesn't lie. One comment describes Robyn's tears as the reset button she hits whenever a conversation is going somewhere she doesn't want it to go. The emotional display stops forward progress on any topic that threatens her position. It repositions her as vulnerable rather than powerful. It makes anyone questioning her look cruel and insensitive, and it buys her time to regroup and approach Cody privately with her preferred narrative. By the time the dust settles from her emotional moment, the decision has already been made in her favor through back channels no one else has access to. What makes this tactic so effective, according to women dissecting it online, is that it weaponizes something that should be healthy. Expressing emotions and vulnerability within a family is important, but Robyn's tears aren't authentic processing. They're strategic deployments that happen with suspicious timing and produce remarkably consistent outcomes. And the other wives, conditioned to prioritize Robyn's emotional state to keep peace, have spent years walking on eggshells and abandoning their own needs the moment Robyn's waterworks start flowing. The Sister Wives community is done calling it sensitivity. They're calling it exactly what it is: calculated emotional manipulation dressed up as feminine fragility. The photo removal demand is where this whole operation crosses from emotional manipulation into something far more sinister. According to posts now circulating with growing alarm, Robyn allegedly requested that staff remove family photos of the original 3 wives from the Brown family household. Not rearrange them, not balance them with newer pictures, remove them entirely. This isn't about redecorating or updating the family gallery. This is about systematic erasure, and the implications have the Sister Wives community absolutely reeling because it reveals the end game of everything else they've been documenting. Here's what multiple users are reporting based on background details visible in episodes and alleged insider information. The Brown family home, particularly the common areas where Cody and Robyn spend most of their time, underwent what looked like subtle decorating changes over the course of several seasons. Viewers who'd been paying close attention started noticing that wedding photos featuring Mary, Janelle, and Christine were disappearing from walls and shelves. Pictures of family events that included all the wives were being replaced with images that either featured only Robyn or showed Robyn prominently with Cody while the other wives were cropped to the margins or absent entirely. At first, it seemed like natural evolution as the family grew and new memories replaced old ones, but the pattern was too consistent and too one-directional to be accidental. One Redditor who claims connections to production staff alleges that Robyn specifically requested these removals, framing it as creating a more peaceful environment for her and Cody. The justification reportedly centered on not wanting to be surrounded by the past and needing space that felt like theirs rather than a shrine to previous relationships. On the surface, that might sound like a reasonable boundary, but let's be clear about what's actually happening here. Those photos represent real marriages, real children, real decades of family history. Removing them doesn't create peace. It creates revisionist history, where Robyn becomes the main character and everyone else gets written out of the narrative. Several viewers point to specific episodes where you can actually track the disappearance if you're watching carefully. In one season, there's a prominent photo on the mantle from an early family camping trip featuring all 4 wives and the kids. It's visible in multiple scenes over several episodes. By the next season, that photo is gone, replaced with a professional portrait of Cody and Robyn. In another instance, a hallway that previously displayed wedding photos from all 4 marriages shows up in later episodes, with only Robyn's wedding featured, blown up to a much larger size and positioned as the centerpiece. The other wedding photos aren't relocated to different spots in the house, they're just gone. The symbolism isn't subtle, and viewers aren't missing it. One comment states it plainly: she's not just trying to be the favorite wife, she's trying to be the only wife that matters. By removing physical evidence of the other marriages, Robyn's essentially rewriting the Brown family origin story. New visitors to the home would see Robyn as the primary wife, the central relationship, the beginning of Cody's real family life. The original 3 wives get demoted to footnotes, and their children get erased from the visual narrative of what this family is supposed to be. It's psychological warfare disguised as interior design. What makes this particularly cruel, according to women analyzing these tactics, is that photo removal is a classic isolation technique used to sever emotional connections. When you remove visual reminders of people and relationships, you make it easier to forget they exist, dismiss their importance, and minimize their contributions. Mary, Janelle, and Christine aren't just losing wall space, they're losing their documented place in family history. Their marriages are being treated as preliminary chapters that don't deserve permanent display, now that Robyn's here. And Cody, surrounded exclusively by images that center Robyn, gets constant visual reinforcement that she's the relationship that matters, while the others fade into irrelevance. The alleged involvement of staff in this process adds another disturbing layer. If Robyn genuinely made these requests to household employees, she's using her position as Cody's favorite to exercise authority over shared family space without consulting the other wives. She's making unilateral decisions about whose presence gets honored and whose gets erased. And she's doing it through intermediaries, so she never has to own the decision publicly or face direct confrontation about it. The photos disappear quietly, and by the time anyone notices, it's already done. No argument, no discussion, just erasure accomplished through whispered instructions to people who answer to Cody and Robyn's household. One particularly cutting comment observes, "When someone starts erasing evidence that you existed, they're preparing for a future where you don't." The photo purge isn't just about vanity or jealousy, it's about fundamentally restructuring the family narrative, so Robyn's version becomes the only version, and viewers watching this unfold are recognizing it as the clearest evidence yet that Robyn's not trying to fit into this plural family. She's been systematically dismantling it, so she can rebuild it with herself at the center, and everyone else pushed permanently to the periphery. Hop in the time machine for a moment, because understanding how Robyn became the alleged puppet master requires going back to where this all started. She didn't arrive in season 1 wielding manipulation tactics like a seasoned operator. She came in as the sweet younger wife who seemed genuinely overwhelmed by joining an established plural family. The tears were there from the beginning, but they read as authentic nervousness rather than strategic deployment. What viewers are realizing now, with the benefit of hindsight and pattern recognition, is that Robyn's been playing the long game from day one. This wasn't sudden transformation, this was gradual positioning that took years to fully execute, and the early seasons contain all the groundwork for everything that's exploding now. Let's revisit those first years with fresh eyes. When Robyn joined the family in 2010, she positioned herself as the grateful outsider who just wanted to fit in and support the existing structure. She praised Mary constantly, calling her a spiritual guide. She deferred to Janelle's practical wisdom. She complimented Christine's mothering skills. She was the picture of humility and respect for the women who'd built this family before she arrived. But even then, tiny moments stand out, now that didn't register as red flags at the time. The way she'd cry when Cody spent time with other wives, framing it as her own insecurity rather than a bid for his attention. The way she'd express concerns about family decisions for Cody's sake rather than her own preferences. The way she'd position herself physically closest to Cody in group settings, a subtle claiming of territory that looked innocent but established hierarchy. The real shift started happening around season 4 and 5, according to longtime viewers doing deep retrospective analysis. That's when Robyn began having more private conversations with Cody that made it into episodes, but weren't fully audible or explained. That's when her tears started producing more immediate results in terms of changed plans or redirected attention. That's when the other wives started using phrases like, "Robyn's really struggling right now," as justification for why certain decisions needed to accommodate her specifically. The language shifted from "we're all adjusting" to "we need to support Robyn," without anyone explicitly acknowledging that the balance of emotional labor had tipped dramatically in one direction. One particularly astute comment points to the family mission statement episodes as a turning point. When the Browns sat down to articulate their shared values and structure, Robyn cried multiple times about feeling like she didn't fully belong yet. Her emotional displays dominated those discussions. The final mission statement that emerged placed heavy emphasis on making sure every wife feels equally valued and prioritizing the needs of anyone struggling to connect. On paper, that sounds healthy and inclusive. In practice, it created a framework where Robyn's emotional state became the family's central concern and accommodating her feelings became the metric for whether they were living their values. She essentially wrote herself a permission slip to claim victimhood whenever she wanted attention or resources redirected her way. The legal marriage switch in 2014 was the concrete manifestation of everything Robyn had been building toward. Cody divorced Mary, his first wife of over 2 decades, to legally marry Robyn so he could adopt her children from her previous marriage. The narrative presented to viewers emphasized the practical necessity and the noble sacrifice everyone was making for the kids. But look at what it actually accomplished. Robyn secured legal status that none of the other wives had. She became Cody's official partner in the eyes of the law, complete with all the financial protections and decision-making power that entails. And she did it while maintaining her image as the grateful wife who never asked for special treatment, even though that legal marriage represented the most significant special treatment possible in a plural family structure. Multiple users note that Cody's behavior changed noticeably after that legal marriage. He became more defensive of Robyn, more dismissive of the other wives' concerns, more willing to prioritize Robyn's household over the others. Was it the legal bond that shifted his psychology? Was it Robyn's increased private access as his legal wife? Was it the cumulative effect of years of her shaping his perceptions in whispered conversations? Probably all of the above, but the timeline is undeniable. Post-legal marriage, Cody is a different man than pre-legal marriage Cody, and Robyn's the common denominator in that transformation. The pandemic years accelerated everything Robyn had been building toward for a decade. When COVID restrictions gave Cody justification to limit his rotation between households, he essentially moved in full-time with Robyn while maintaining only sporadic contact with the others. The strict rules that kept him separated from Janelle and Christine mysteriously didn't apply the same way at Robyn's house. The tears about missing him became ammunition for keeping him close, and the whisper campaigns about the other wives' supposed violations of protocols ensured they stayed at arm's length, while Robyn secured exclusive access. Looking back at the full arc, one commenter summarizes it perfectly. She spent 10 years making herself indispensable while making everyone else disposable. We watched it happen in real time and thought it was just family drama. Now we can see it was a systematic takeover disguised as struggling to fit in. The manipulation wasn't obvious because it was gradual. The isolation tactics worked because they were implemented over years rather than overnight. And Robyn's greatest achievement was convincing everyone, including viewers, that she was the vulnerable one who needed protection while she quietly dismantled every relationship that threatened her position as Cody's primary focus. The long game paid off, and Season 20 is simply the end game playing out in public view. The moment the Sister Wives community connected the dots was like watching a collective light bulb illuminate across every platform simultaneously. What had seemed like isolated incidents, personality clashes, or typical plural family growing pains suddenly crystallized into an undeniable pattern. And once one person pointed it out clearly, thousands of others started chiming in with their own observations that fit perfectly into the framework. This wasn't conspiracy theory. This was pattern recognition at its finest, conducted by women whose life experience made them uniquely qualified to spot manipulation tactics playing out on screen. Reddit became ground zero for the awakening, but it spread rapidly to Facebook groups, Twitter threads, and even TikTok breakdowns. One viral post titled, "I finally see what Robyn's been doing and I feel stupid for missing it," opened the floodgates. The original poster described rewatching old seasons after seeing Season 20 previews and suddenly recognizing behaviors she dismissed as insecurity were actually strategic moves. Her examples ranged from early seasons to recent episodes, showing consistency across more than a decade. The comments section exploded with other viewers experiencing the same revelation. "Oh my god, I thought I was the only one noticing," appeared dozens of times. These women weren't creating a narrative. They were finally giving voice to something they'd been subconsciously tracking for years. The beauty of crowdsourced analysis is that different viewers caught different pieces of evidence, and when combined, they create an overwhelming picture. Some users focused on body language, noting how Robyn positions herself physically in group settings to maintain proximity to Cody, while subtly creating distance between him and the other wives. Others tracked financial patterns visible in background details, noting that Robyn's home consistently shows upgrades and purchases that don't appear in the other wives' households, despite claims of equal budget distribution. Still others compiled timelines of Cody's talking points, demonstrating how his criticisms of Mary, Janelle, and Christine consistently echo concerns Robyn expressed weeks earlier in ways that can't be coincidental. One particularly detailed analysis gained massive traction by focusing exclusively on Robyn's language patterns. The user, who identified herself as a therapist specializing in family systems, pointed out how Robyn consistently uses what's called concern trolling in her conversations. She frames attacks as worry, she presents demands as vulnerabilities, she positions manipulation as care. "I'm just concerned that Mary's not really happy here." Sounds supportive, but plants seeds of doubt about Mary's commitment. "I worry that Christine wants something we can't give her." Sounds empathetic, but suggests Christine's needs are unreasonable. This linguistic analysis helped other viewers recognize the tactic in real time, and suddenly dozens of examples from across multiple seasons got flagged in comment threads. The discussion expanded beyond just documenting Robyn's behavior to analyzing why it worked so effectively for so long. Multiple users pointed out that Robyn exploited the fundamental values of the plural family structure to manipulate it from within. Plural marriage requires tremendous emotional generosity, constant prioritization of collective needs over individual wants, and willingness to sacrifice for sister wives' well-being. Those are beautiful principles when everyone's operating in good faith. But Robyn weaponized them. Every time the other wives extended generosity, she took more. Every time they prioritized her needs, she established that as the new baseline and demanded more accommodation. Every time they sacrificed for her well-being, she used their sacrifice as evidence that her struggles were more severe than everyone else's. She turned their commitment to plural family values into the very mechanism that enabled her to dismantle the family. Facebook groups dedicated to the show saw similar pattern recognition playing out among slightly older demographics. Women in their 50s and 60s started sharing stories from their own lives that paralleled what they were seeing on screen. The coworker who cried whenever performance reviews came up then used that emotional capital to avoid accountability. The friend who always had a crisis that required immediate attention conveniently timed to derail other people's important moments. The family member who played victim so consistently that eventually everyone else's legitimate needs got dismissed as less urgent than her manufactured dramas. These women recognized Robyn's playbook because they'd encountered it in their own lives, and their real-world experience gave them the expertise to identify it playing out on television. The cross-platform awakening created its own momentum. TikTok creators started making side-by-side comparison videos showing Robyn crying about feeling excluded in one clip, then footage from a few episodes later showing exclusive access she'd secured with Cody. Twitter threads compiled evidence with prosecutorial precision, complete with screenshots, episode timestamps, and direct quotes that removed any ambiguity about what was happening. YouTube commentary channels that had previously defended Robyn or given her the benefit of the doubt started issuing mea culpas and revisiting their old analyses with fresh perspective. What makes this community recognition so powerful is that it's not coming from tabloids or production leaks. It's coming from regular viewers who've invested over a decade in watching this family. These are women who wanted the plural marriage experiment to work, who rooted for all 4 wives, who hoped the family would find sustainable happiness. They're not hate-watching or looking for villains. They're simply calling out patterns they can no longer ignore. And their collective voice is creating a reckoning that's reframing everything. Sister Wives has presented as relationship struggles into something far more calculated. The community isn't just watching anymore. They're documenting, analyzing, and refusing to pretend they don't see exactly what's been happening, while Robyn maintained her tears and victim routine for the cameras. Let's set down the Sister Wives gossip teacup for a moment and talk about something practical, because what viewers are identifying in Robyn's behavior isn't unique to reality television or plural marriage. These are classic manipulation tactics that show up in workplaces, friendships, family systems, and romantic relationships everywhere. The reason thousands of women are having light bulb moments watching this play out on screen is because they've encountered these same patterns in their own lives. So here's the red flag checklist pulled straight from what the community's been documenting. See if any ring a bell. Red flag number 1 is strategic vulnerability. Authentic emotional expression is healthy and necessary in relationships, but strategic vulnerability uses emotional displays as tools to control situations rather than genuine communication of internal states. The tell is in the timing and the outcomes. If someone's tears or distress consistently appear when they're about to face accountability, when conversations are heading somewhere they don't want to go, or right before decisions get made that don't favor them, you're not witnessing genuine emotion. You're watching tactical deployment. And if those emotional moments consistently result in the conversation getting derailed, the uncomfortable topic getting dropped, and decisions shifting in their favor, the pattern reveals itself. Robyn cries when budget questions come up, and suddenly the budget review ends without answers. That's not sensitivity, that's strategy. Red flag number 2 is triangulation through concern. Pay attention when someone consistently shares their worries about other people in private conversations rather than addressing issues directly. "I'm just concerned about Sarah's attitude lately." Sounds caring when said to the boss, but it's planting negative impressions without Sarah present to defend herself or provide context. Robyn pulling Cody aside after family meetings to express concerns about the other wife's loyalty or commitment is textbook triangulation. She's not facilitating communication. She's controlling the narrative by ensuring Cody only hears her interpretation of everyone else's behavior. In your own life, this shows up when someone makes you their confidant about their concerns regarding others, positioning themselves as the reasonable, worried party, while slowly poisoning your perception of the people they're discussing. Red flag number 3 is the isolation spiral. Watch for people who consistently create situations where you end up spending exclusive time with them while your connections to others weaken. This doesn't happen through obvious demands. It happens through manufactured circumstances that feel natural but produce very unnatural results. Robyn's crying about wanting family time leads to itinerary changes that give her alone time with Cody. Her emotional struggles result in Cody spending more nights at her house to support her. Her concerns about other wives create enough tension that Cody starts avoiding them to escape conflict. Each step seems reasonable in isolation, but the cumulative effect is total isolation where the manipulator becomes the only voice the target hears consistently. In workplaces, this is the colleague who always needs your help during lunch when you'd normally eat with other coworkers. In friendships, it's the person whose crisis always coincides with your plans to see other friends. Red flag number 4 is the victim-to-victor switch that happens off-camera. Public vulnerability followed by private victory is a hallmark of sophisticated manipulation. The person appears wounded and helpless in front of witnesses, which generates sympathy and makes anyone questioning them look cruel. But behind closed doors, they're making calculated moves that directly benefit them. Robyn sobs about feeling excluded in family meetings, but then has private conversations with Cody that result in decisions favoring her exclusively. The public sees the tears. The private moments produce the actual outcomes. In your life, this is the coworker who cries in meetings about being overwhelmed, but somehow always gets their preferred projects and schedule. It's the friend who seems perpetually victimized, but consistently ends up getting exactly what they want while everyone else makes sacrifices. Red flag number 5 is erasure disguised as preference. When someone systematically removes evidence of other people's importance or contributions while elevating their own presence, they're rewriting history to center themselves. Robyn allegedly requesting removal of photos featuring the original wives isn't decorating, it's erasure. In work environments, this shows up when someone takes credit for collaborative efforts while minimizing others' contributions. In families, it's the relative who rewrites stories to diminish other people's roles while amplifying their own involvement. The goal is to make their version the only version anyone remembers. Red flag number 6 is the crisis pattern. Notice if someone's emergencies consistently coincide with moments when attention or resources would naturally flow elsewhere. If your big presentation week is always when they have a breakdown, if another family member's achievement is always overshadowed by their urgent situation, if every time you're about to confront them, something happens that makes you the villain for bringing it up, that's not bad luck, that's pattern. Robyn's distress moments consistently occur when other wives are advocating for their needs, or when she's about to face questions she doesn't want to answer. The manufactured crisis redirects all energy to managing her emotions while the original issue dies on the vine. Red flag number 7, and this is the most important one. Trust your gut when something feels off, even if you can't articulate why. The women analyzing Sister Wives didn't have manipulation textbooks in hand while watching. They felt something was wrong for years before they could name it specifically. That instinct is valid and valuable. If someone's behavior creates a persistent sense of unease, if you feel like you're walking on eggshells, if you notice yourself changing your behavior to avoid triggering their reactions, those feelings are data worth examining. You don't need a smoking gun to trust your own perception. The Sister Wives community is doing important work by documenting these patterns so clearly because they're giving language and framework to dynamics many women recognize but struggle to name. Whether it's Robyn Brown manipulating a plural family structure or someone in your own life using similar tactics, the patterns are recognizable once you know what to look for, and recognizing them is the first step toward refusing to participate in your own manipulation. The most heartbreaking element of this entire pattern is watching the 3 original wives slowly realize what's been happening to them. Mary, Janelle, and Christine didn't wake up one morning and decide to abandon their plural family. They were systematically pushed out over years through tactics so gradual and insidious that by the time they recognized the pattern, their marriages were already in ruins. and the evidence of their growing awareness is scattered throughout recent seasons for anyone willing to watch their faces, listen to their words, and recognize the specific language of women who finally identified the manipulation they've been enduring. Christine was the first to clearly articulate what she was experiencing, and her departure marked the beginning of the other wives' collective awakening. In her final season, she stopped using vague language about struggling and started naming specific behaviors. She pointed out that Cody's rules during the pandemic applied differently to different households. She noted that her concerns got dismissed, while Robyn's were immediately validated. She observed that she'd spent years trying to be good enough, accommodating enough, understanding enough, and it was never sufficient because the goalposts kept moving. That's the language of someone who's recognized they're not failing at meeting reasonable standards. They're trapped in a system where the standards are deliberately impossible to meet because exclusion is the point. Watch Christine's talking head interviews in her last episodes with this framework in mind. She's not angry in the explosive, irrational way that would make her easy to dismiss. She's displaying the specific exhaustion of someone who's finally stopped trying to solve a puzzle that was never meant to be solved. "I Can't Make Him Love Me" isn't just about romantic feelings. It's about recognizing that no amount of effort, sacrifice, or accommodation will change an outcome that was predetermined by someone else's agenda. Christine saw that Robyn had secured exclusive access to Cody, that she herself had been reduced to an obligation he resented rather than a wife he valued, and that fighting for scraps of attention wasn't a marriage worth staying in. Janelle's awakening is quieter but equally telling for anyone paying attention. She's always been the pragmatic, independent wife who didn't need constant emotional validation from Cody. That personality trait protected her initially from the worst of Robyn's manipulation because she wasn't competing for the same emotional resources, but watch how her language shifts in recent seasons. She starts mentioning feeling like an outsider in her own family. She references having to beg for Cody's time. She notes that she's functioning essentially as a single mother while legally still married. Janelle's recognizing that her independence, which she thought was compatible with plural marriage, has been weaponized against her. Robyn positioned Janelle's self-sufficiency as evidence she didn't need Cody as much, and Cody used that narrative as justification to neglect her while framing it as respecting her autonomy. The most gut-wrenching awareness journey belongs to Mary, who spent years trying to rebuild after the catfishing scandal destroyed her credibility and gave Robyn permanent ammunition against her. Watch Mary's face in group settings during recent seasons. She's not participating in conversations the way she once did. She's observing, she's calculating, she's seeing the game board clearly for the first time after years of being a pawn on it. When she talks about feeling like Cody's been done with her for years but couldn't articulate why, she's describing the experience of being systematically excluded while being blamed for the exclusion. Robyn's whisper campaigns about Mary's loyalty gave Cody permission to withdraw completely, while maintaining that Mary's own behavior justified his absence. Multiple Reddit threads focus specifically on moments where the original wives' awareness becomes visible on camera. One user compiled clips of Christine, Janelle, and Mary exchanging glances during family meetings when Robyn's crying or when Cody's parroting obvious Robyn talking points. Those glances contain entire conversations. They're women recognizing a pattern together and silently acknowledging what they're witnessing. In one particularly striking moment during a discussion about fair time distribution, Robyn starts crying about feeling judged, and the camera catches Janelle's face before she schools her expression back to neutral. For just a second, there's something that looks like recognition, frustration, and resignation all at once. She knows what's happening, she knows the conversation's about to get derailed, and she knows there's no point in fighting it because the outcome is already determined. The language all three women use in their exit explanations contains remarkably similar themes, which viewers note is significant. They all mention feeling like their efforts weren't valued. They all describe realizing they couldn't compete with someone who had exclusive access and influence. They all reference years of trying to figure out what they were doing wrong before recognizing the system itself was designed for them to fail. That parallel language isn't coincidence. It's what happens when multiple people are subjected to the same manipulation tactics and finally develop the framework to name what was done to them. Several therapists and domestic abuse counselors have weighed in on the Sister Wives subreddit, pointing out that what the original wives are describing matches the awakening process abuse survivors go through when they finally identify they've been manipulated. It's not a light switch, it's a gradual accumulation of evidence that contradicts the narrative they've been told about their own inadequacy. Christine, Janelle, and Mary were told repeatedly that their marriages struggled because they weren't trying hard enough, weren't faithful enough to plural marriage principles, weren't accommodating enough of Robyn's needs as the newer wife. The breakthrough happens when they realize no amount of effort would have changed the outcome because someone else was actively sabotaging their relationships while positioning herself as the only wife truly committed to making things work. The saddest element, according to longtime viewers, is that all three original wives can be seen trying to warn each other over the years, in subtle ways. There are moments where Christine tries to point out unequal treatment, and Mary defends Cody. Scenes where Janelle mentions feeling excluded, and Christine reassures her it's probably unintentional. Instances where Mary expresses concern about family dynamics, and Janelle suggests giving things more time. They were each seeing pieces of the pattern at different times, but Robyn's manipulation was sophisticated enough that they couldn't get aligned in their awareness until the damage was catastrophic. By the time all three were on the same page about what had been done to them, their marriages were already beyond salvaging. And Robyn remained in her position as Cody's favorite, maintaining her image as the loyal wife who just wanted the family to work while the original foundation crumbled completely. The Sister Wives fanbase has transformed from passive viewers into an organized force demanding accountability, and the shift is remarkable to witness. What started as casual discussions about family drama has evolved into a coordinated movement of women who are absolutely done pretending manipulation is just personality conflict. They're not calling for cancellation or harassment, they're calling for honesty, transparency, and recognition of patterns that have been operating in plain sight for years. And their collective voice is creating pressure that can't be dismissed as internet trolling or misunderstanding. These are loyal viewers who've invested over a decade in this family, and they're using that investment to demand better. The solidarity shows up in fascinating ways across platforms. Facebook groups that once debated which wife was most sympathetic have united around supporting the three original wives and holding Robyn accountable for documented behavior. One group with over 50,000 members changed its description to explicitly state there is space for recognizing manipulation tactics and supporting women who've been systematically excluded. Thread after thread features women sharing their own experiences with similar dynamics, validating each other's perceptions, and refusing to gaslight themselves about what they're seeing on screen. The collective validation is powerful because it counters the isolation manipulation relies on to function effectively. Reddit threads have become educational resources where users share articles about triangulation, emotional manipulation, and isolation tactics alongside their sister wives' analysis. One highly upvoted post, titled "Why We Need to Stop Calling This Drama and Start Calling It Abuse," sparked conversations about the language used to describe what's happening. The poster argued that labeling it jealousy or sister-wife conflict minimizes the calculated nature of Robyn's behavior and makes it seem like normal relationship struggles rather than systematic manipulation. The comment section filled with women agreeing that the terminology matters because it shapes how seriously the behavior gets taken. Calling it what it is, psychological manipulation designed to isolate and control, changes the entire framework for understanding the family's collapse. Twitter hashtags like Sister Wives Truth and Robyn Accountability trend regularly, now with users posting side-by-side screenshots showing Robyn's contradictions, timeline comparisons revealing her pattern, and video compilations demonstrating how consistently her tears produce favorable outcomes. The hashtags aren't just criticism, they're documentation. These women are creating an archive of evidence that becomes harder to dismiss as the volume grows. When one person points out a pattern, it can be written off as overreaction. When thousands of people independently identify the same pattern with specific examples, it becomes undeniable data. The community has also rallied around the original three wives in ways that demonstrate genuine support rather than parasocial obsession. When Christine announced she was leaving, the response wasn't shock or judgment. It was celebration and encouragement. Comments poured in praising her courage, validating her decision, sharing resources for women leaving difficult relationships. When Janelle started showing signs of pulling away, viewers cheered her on and created supportive spaces for discussing the complexities of leaving a decades-long marriage. When Mary remains in limbo, struggling with the decision, the community extends patience and understanding rather than pressure, recognizing that leaving manipulation isn't as simple as outsiders think it should be. Several online communities have organized real-world actions that demonstrate how seriously they're taking this accountability mission. One Facebook group coordinated a letter-writing campaign to TLC, requesting that Season 20 address the manipulation patterns directly, rather than continuing to frame everything as organic relationship evolution. Another group created a petition asking for production transparency about what gets edited out versus what makes it to air, arguing that viewers deserve to know if editors are protecting Robyn by cutting evidence of her private conversations with Cody. These aren't casual viewers firing off angry tweets. These are organized efforts from women who understand how media shapes narrative and want that power used responsibly. The demand for accountability extends to Cody himself, not just Robyn. Multiple threads analyze his role as an active participant in the manipulation rather than just a passive victim of Robyn's schemes. One popular post breaks down how Cody benefits from the current arrangement, getting exclusive access to his favorite wife without having to officially end his other marriages and face the plural family failure that would represent. Another examines how his talking points about the other wives mirror Robyn's concerns, so exactly that he's either being deliberately manipulated or consciously choosing to adopt her narrative because it serves his interests. The community isn't letting him hide behind Robyn made me do it defenses. They're holding him accountable for his choices and his willingness to sacrifice 3 long-term relationships for the comfort of the 4th. What makes this movement particularly powerful is its refusal to engage in the typical reality TV toxicity. The sister wives communities have explicit rules against body shaming, appearance criticism, or attacks on Robyn's children. The focus remains laser-targeted on documented behavior, verifiable patterns, and the impact of those actions on other people. This isn't hate, this is accountability, grounded in evidence, and delivered by women who recognize manipulation when they see it, because they've lived it, survived it, and refuse to watch it get romanticized on television without calling it what it is. The collective voice has created enough pressure that even mainstream media outlets are starting to cover the allegations with more nuance. Entertainment news sites that previously framed everything as sister-wife drama are now publishing articles examining Robyn's specific tactics and interviewing psychologists about manipulation patterns in polygamous relationships. The shift in coverage from catty women fighting over a man to expert analysis of isolation and control tactics represents a victory for the community that's been demanding this behavior be taken seriously. One recurring theme in solidarity discussions is the acknowledgement that this pattern plays out everywhere, not just on reality television. Women share stories about recognizing these same dynamics in their own extended families, workplaces, and friend groups. The sister-wives situation has become a teaching moment, a shared reference point for discussing manipulation in ways that feel safer than exposing their own situations. She's pulling a Robyn has become shorthand in these communities for someone deploying tears strategically or triangulating to isolate others. The show has inadvertently provided a vocabulary and framework for thousands of women to name what they've experienced in their own lives. The bottom line, according to this activated community, is simple. They're done accepting it's complicated as justification for enabling manipulation. They want honesty from production about what they've filmed and chosen not to air. They want acknowledgement from Cody and Robyn about the patterns that are visible to everyone watching. And they want validation for the 3 original wives who gave decades to a family that systematically excluded them while gaslighting them about their own perceptions. The Sister Wives audience has found its voice, and it's speaking truth that refuses to be silenced or dismissed as mere gossip. Season 20 is shaping up to be the reckoning that's been building for over a decade, and viewers are here for every uncomfortable moment. The manipulation that operated in shadows for years is finally getting dragged into full light, and there's no putting this genie back in the bottle. Robyn can't cry her way out of documented patterns. Cody can't gaslight his way past timelines that don't lie. And the 3 original wives are done protecting the family image at the expense of their own truth. The preview clips already show cracks in Robyn's carefully maintained victim facade. In one, she's confronted directly about her private conversations with Cody, and her reaction isn't tears. It's defensiveness with an edge that viewers haven't seen before. When someone who's used to controlling the narrative through vulnerability suddenly gets cornered with specifics, the mask slips. The community is watching those moments with the intensity of investigators who finally got their suspect in the interrogation room. Legal implications are lurking in the background of all this family drama. With Christine officially out and Janelle clearly 1 foot out the door, questions about property division, financial entanglements, and years of unequal resource distribution will have to get answered in concrete ways rather than vague promises. The whisper campaigns and emotional manipulation don't hold up in legal proceedings, where documentation matters and feelings don't override facts. If financial records show the patterns viewers suspect, where Robyn's household received disproportionate funding while the others struggled, those numbers will tell a story no amount of tears can rewrite. What happens to Robyn's image when the full truth comes out is the question the community keeps circling back to. She's built an entire brand on being the sweet, struggling wife who just wants family harmony. Every crying confessional, every vulnerability display, every moment of playing peacemaker while privately pulling strings has created a persona that millions of people watched and some believed. When that persona gets exposed as performance, when the evidence of systematic manipulation becomes undeniable even to casual viewers, the collapse will be spectacular. You can't rebuild credibility once it's been shattered by your own documented behavior shown in sequence and context. For the 3 original wives, Season 20 represents different types of liberation. Christine's already free and thriving, showing what life looks like on the other side of manipulation. Her happiness is the most damning evidence against the narrative that leaving plural marriage means personal failure. Janelle's walking toward that same freedom with the confidence of someone who's done the math and knows staying costs more than leaving. And Mary. Complicated Mary, who's held on longer than anyone. Even she seems to be approaching a breaking point, where dignity matters more than desperately clinging to a marriage that ended years ago in everything but official acknowledgement. The Sister Wives community isn't going anywhere. They'll be watching every episode, documenting every reveal, calling out every attempt to rewrite history or minimize what's been exposed. These women have invested too much time, too much emotional energy, and recognized too much of their own experiences in this family story to let it get swept under the rug with vague explanations and non-apologies. They want accountability, they want honesty, and they want validation that what they've been seeing for years was real and significant. Here's the bottom line that matters most. Whether Robyn ever acknowledges her manipulation tactics or Cody ever admits he abandoned 3 wives for the comfort of the 4th, the truth is now public record. The patterns are documented, the evidence is archived, and thousands of women have learned to recognize these dynamics in ways that will protect them in their own lives. That's the legacy of this exposure, beyond just reality television drama. It's a masterclass in identifying manipulation, trusting your perception, and refusing to gaslight yourself when the evidence is clear. So as season 20 unfolds and the Brown family reckoning plays out on screen, the community will be watching with the sharp eyes of women who know exactly what they're looking at. The manipulation era is over. The accountability era has begun. And Robyn's victim narrative just ran headfirst into a wall of women who are absolutely done pretending they don't see what's been happening all along. Now the question is, do you think season 20 will finally expose even bigger secrets about Robyn's behind-the-scenes control, or has the worst already been revealed? And which moment are you most anticipating? Christine's thriving independence, Janelle's clean break, or Mary finally walking away with her dignity intact? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tap that like button, hit subscribe, and keep those notifications on because this story is far from over. A fresh video is already queued up, and something tells me the next round of Sister Wives revelations will be even juicier than the last.